Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Young Organizers United Manchester Candidate Forum. My name is Nathan Dubau. I am a junior at Manchester Central High School, a primary leader with YLU, and I will be serving as your moderator tonight. You will be hearing responses from candidates seeking the offices of Board of Aldermen and Board of School Committee on issues we face going to school every day, as well as the community that we live in. But before we get started, I wanted to take a few minutes to extend gratitude to all the people and organizations that helped bring this event to life today. To Principal Bacarezza and Mrs. Spiro, Assistant Superintendents Jennifer Gillis and Amy Allen, as well as Superintendent Dr. Goldhart. To all the organizations that have joined our coalition in support of Student Voice, ACLU, RAD, New Hampshire Youth Movement, the Carpenters Union, America Votes, and the MEA. Last but not least, to all the candidates who responded to our survey as well, all of you that attended this event tonight, we really appreciate you. As a part of Young Organizers United efforts to provide you with timely topics and interesting questions, we'd appreciate it if you would fill out the question card provided, and please hold your card up as Usher will be in the aisle to receive your questions. Before we introduce our candidates tonight, I wanted to give you a brief recap on how YLU arrived to the candidate forum today. I began my time with YLU this summer participating in a 6-week civic engagement program. I learned of my classmates' struggle to support my voice being heard. I worked closely with Zainab Osman, who was a Central graduate and a freshman at Keene State College. She spent the entirety of her high school career advocating for youth voice, with the Board of School Committee unwilling to allow us to sit shoulder to shoulder with them after improving student voice. We pivoted to have our student voice question put on the ballot for the upcoming city election. After the Board of Aldermen approved our request to have the student voice question on the ballot, we immediately got to work, contacting all 64 candidates who had declared for office in the primary. We emailed, made phone calls, and sent mail requesting that all 64 candidates take part in a 30-question survey that included topics such as an ethnic studies course, teacher contracts, and youth on school board. Of the 60 candidates, 30 took part in our survey. We then got started organizing our candidate forum, searching for locations all around Manchester to hold this event. Mr. Bacarezza was super supportive of our efforts to improve our civic education and to show the potential that students in Manchester have to make positive change in our schools and community. Tonight is the culmination of over 3 months of preparation and planning to bring the citizens of Manchester an opportunity and avenue to ask questions and receive information on the candidates that represent the neighborhood and people that live there. Now, moving along to our session, please welcome our candidates for Board of School Committee who will be speaking to us on a number of topics over the duration of our event. James Porter, from Ward 4. Thank you, James Porter. From Ward 2, Alderman candidate Will Stewart. From Ward 3, Alderman candidate Pat Long. School Board. Sorry about that. From Ward 4, Board of School Committee candidate Mark J. Flanders. Mark J. Flanders. From Ward 6, Board of School Committee candidate Dan Bergeron. From Ward 7, Board of School Committee candidate Chris Potter. From Ward 11, Board of School Committee candidate Nicole Leakley. Our at-large candidates for Board of School Committee are Laura Quiroga and Jim O'Connell. And at-large Jim Martin. Thank you all for coming tonight. Our format tonight will alternate between questions for Board of School Committee candidates and alderman candidates. All candidates are free to answer any question with responses maxed out at 2 minutes. We will begin with a question for our Board of School Committee candidates. And from Ward, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Amber Jogwin from Ward 1. I also forgot to mention Jeremy Dobson from Ward 5. Thank you for your patience, everyone. It was slow. With much debate about teacher contracts and statuses of the schools, our question to the candidates of Board of School Committee is, how does the board know if its goals are being accomplished and that their policies are being carried out? Sure. The question was, with much debate about teacher contracts and statuses of the schools, our question to the candidates of Board of School Committee is, how does the board know if its goals are being accomplished and that its policies are being carried out?
It's always fun to go first. So my name is Jeremy Dobson, candidate in Ward 5. If I heard the question correctly, it was around with the lack of a teacher contract, how are we ensuring that the district's goals are being achieved? Is that pretty close to it? I'm going to assume that was right. Ultimately, I think it's difficult to do that at any time. But data is the best thing that we have. I'm kind of a technologist by trade. And so looking at the results from test scores and things like that are some of the easiest ways that we can get benchmarks that we can compare across the district. Unfortunately, without a contract, teachers are not able to and or willing to stay after school, put in the extra hours that it takes to really help make sure that our goals are being achieved. And that's unfortunate. That's a huge miss for the Manchester School District to not have a contract in place. Ultimately, I think all the teachers that we have are incredibly dedicated and incredibly professional as well. So regardless of whether or not there's a contract in place, the teachers and the leadership, the principals, the paras, I think they're all out there doing what they love, and they're out there making sure that that they're doing the best that they can with the resources that are provided. And our job as school committee members is to make sure they have those resources. So ultimately, again, I look at it as a failure on us as a board, if I were to be elected, to not have a contract in place. But ultimately, we have to be looking at data, looking at the results that we're getting, and looking at the community turnout too, and making sure that we're hitting the objectives that we've set for ourselves.
Hi, I'm Amber Jogwin. I'm running for school board in Ward 1. I echo a lot of the sentiments that were just shared. I think to see if policies are in effect and are working without a contract, it is a difficult metric to provide. I don't necessarily think test scores from students are good benchmarks, only because I think a lot of our teachers in different schools, not just in the district, but school by school, face different challenges with the students that are in those classrooms. But I think that the lack of resources that we're able to provide our teachers, knowing that they spend their own money to bring resources into their classroom is a shame, and that we as a district should be providing those resources and providing the technology and the exposure to our students. Whether a student is going to go to college after graduation or a trade school, there should be exposure. The other, I just lost my train of thought. I'm also a high-performing introvert, so with the budget and seeing that 2% of our budget right now is going to our students, I think that part needs to change for their resources. I'm a marketing professional as well, so one of the things I looked at for the Manchester School District was looking at Glassdoor ratings. When we're looking to recruit and hire in marketing for HR, we're looking at Glassdoor ratings, and the school district right now has a very low rating, and that is reflective of that lack of contract. So to recruit new teachers into the system and to retain the talent that we have, I think that lack of a contract is going to prove that to be extremely difficult.
My name is Jim Martin, running for school board at large. Just going off of the question, we need to have a contract. That's really important. We need to get that done. Unfortunately, it looks like the new board will have to take that on and be able to negotiate that and put it into action. The key thing is our schools have challenges on a number of fronts. There's some great things going on in the schools, but there's some challenges. And we need the teachers, we need all educators, paraprofessionals, all school district employees to be ready and willing to work with the school board administrators to move forward on some serious things. And the reality is we can't talk about policies, whether it's a cell phone policy that teachers are going to have to enforce or other kinds of policies. We have to have a contract so folks are willing and ready to come to the table and work. So we have to get that done. Our students, we have an unequal system depending on where you go to school in the city, and we really have to change up. The first step is obviously getting a contract and then being able to work and close the achievement gap across the district. So.
Thank you, Gene. So, my name is Jim O'Connell, and I'm a candidate for school board at large. I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight. I'm very honored to be here with all these fine gentlemen and ladies, and I've enjoyed the process so far, and I'm looking forward to the gallop to the finish over the next 2 weeks, and thank you for all coming. Another thought I have, I will address your question in a second, but I've been in this room many, many times. I have 4 children, 3 of whom have graduated from Central and 1 who was currently here at Central. And I've sat in the seats that you're in tonight many times, and I've never realized how blinking terrorizing it is, or to be standing here staring at lights. And my admiration for all the young men and women that I've seen up here over the years has gone through the ceiling since I stood here. So, with regard to the policy issue, I don't really see the connection between how the school board knows that its policies are being implemented and the question of the contract. So, the second one I think is the policy issue. Just very briefly, the school board in Manchester needs to understand that it's not a group of mini education experts. You, the people of Manchester, are not electing us for our deep knowledge of pedagogy. We're there as citizens who are looking out for the well-being of the school system in Manchester, to represent you and to make sure that our resources are being adequately properly used and that our school system is properly resourced. With regard to the contract, Manchester Proud, which I'm proud to have been involved in up until a couple of months ago when I resigned in order to run, they made a presentation on Thursday night, I think it was last week. And one of the issues that came up that they found as a deficit in our school district was trust. And the lack of trust between our employees, not just our teachers, but our principals and our secretaries and our staff is the big issue. And that's something that the incoming school board needs to work on by working on its own incivility. So I think we need to establish trust between our staff and people working in our schools doing a great job, and re-establish that. It didn't happen one day. Our teachers currently have spent 1.5 years, the teachers, without a contract. But in actual fact, over the last 7 years, they've only had a contract for 3, because they had been 3 years without a contract before that. So we didn't create this problem in a day. I don't know if we'll fix it in a day, but I'm going to be in there trying really hard to join the dots and get this resolved. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Lara Quiroga, running for school board at large. And so I think the most important thing that the district needs and the board needs to really promote is the strategic plan. That's where our goals and the associated outcomes are identified. So we need to all be on the same page about what those strategic goals and subsequent outcomes are if we are going to know if we're on the right path towards success. And in terms of policy for the board, the most important policy the board can set is the budget. Budget is policy. It is how you carry out your strategic plan and how you propose to meet your goals. And so as part of that budget, we need to ensure that we have the resources included in there to pay our teachers and other school personnel and have a fair contract with them. But also ensure that they have the tools and resources at their fingertips to help our students achieve. So again, strategic plan with outcomes and a budget that moves us forward to those goals.
Just real quick, just to reiterate the question for anybody. The question was, with much debate about teacher contracts and status of the schools, our question to the candidates of Board of School Committee is, how does the board know if its goals are being accomplished and that their policies are being carried out?
Thank you. I'm Nicole Leakley. I'm running in Ward 11, and I have a first grader at Gosler Park and a fifth grader at Parkside. And I taught at St. Anselm College for 14 years, so my background is in education, higher education. The question's an interesting one. I agree with Laura that we are not on the same page as far as a strategic plan and what our goals actually are. And I think that discussion is being accelerated and focused on through the Manchester Proud research and the data that they're bringing forward when they're meeting with people in the community and with people in the schools. So I'm hoping that that's something that we will take time and really make sure that we articulate a clear set of goals that we can all work on together. Because I feel like if you need to bring a body of people together to work together, they need a shared vision. And if you don't have a shared vision you're working forward towards, I think then it's easy to kind of break down and to squabble about little things. So I think it is super important that we get together on a shared vision. As far as knowing if our policies are being carried out or not, I feel that goes to the question of communication, which is super important intra-board, right, between the board members who are serving, but also between the board and the administration, be that the superintendent, and with parents and students and teachers. So I feel like in some ways, my role as a school board member is not to be at the top of a hierarchy, but to kind of break down that hierarchy and make sure I'm listening to everyone, whether it be a ninth grader or a middle school teacher or a principal or the superintendent. And that's hard. I understand that that doesn't happen easily, but I feel like part of that is on me to go out to the schools and to reach out to people. And when I have access to data, like the data that Manchester Proud is generating, that I take the time to sit down with that data and talk with people about what we see. Is this what you're observing? How do you think that we can solve that problem together? So I think we don't know what people are doing in the schools unless we're listening to them. And so I feel like that's something that we need to do a better job at.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Potter. I'm running for school board in Ward 7. The last 4 years, I've worked in our schools as the impact manager for City Year New Hampshire at Parker Barney. In that job, I work directly with the teachers and students, training core members, full-time volunteers, to give math and reading instruction to students who are below grade level, and to provide socio-emotional support for students who need improvement in that area, and to give attendance support to students who are chronically absent. As far as it goes, knowing that our goals are being met, members of the school board need to show up. They need to talk to students. They need to talk to teachers, and they need to talk to principals. The best way to know if things are being implemented is to be in the schools. And that's what I've done the last 4 years, and that's what I plan on continuing to do if I'm elected to the school board. As far as the teacher contract goes, that's something that you also will see when you are in schools, that it's an urgent priority. We lose schools, we lose teachers every year to districts that are offering more money, usually the best teachers. And it's having an impact on our students. A lot of the teachers who I know are very early in their career. After a few years of experience in Manchester, they move on to another district, having benefited from the seasoning they got here, but then we lose those years of experience on our teaching staff. So the lack of a contract is absolutely affecting kids, and so it's something that the members of the school board should rally around to make sure we can retain our teaching talent and support our students, because they're the future of our community.
I have this, I'm Dan Bergeron, incumbent in Ward 6. I guess I'm the only incumbent here, actually. But I have to say I'm impressed with all your responses. I guess I'm going to take this in slightly a different direction. People are talking about the strategic plan, which I think is kind of vital to answer all these questions, because as it was mentioned, and a report recently came out last week because it was presented to us as well, that it's by the people, for the people, knocked on 2,000 doors. So, when I think about the teacher's contract, when I think about goals, when I think about all that, when I think this time around, the strategic plan going forward for the next 5 years, it's very community driven, which means there's a lot more buy-in, and having a lot more buy-in, I just feel like, first of all, you all have my back. So, for example, if there's goals that are not being accomplished, I know I have you to help and watch out, because it's not like, it's the students really that we have to be watching out for. I always say that I wish students were more involved in the entire process, the budgeting process, setting goals, whatnot, because they're the ones sitting in the seat, all day long, and I know they picked up a thing or two. So, if I had it my way, then student engagement would increase, especially when it comes to policy. Their opinion would be fascinating. So, going forward, and I like the fact that there is data on some of the goals, and because a lot of, we get grants, a lot of that is tied to data, and certain metrics need to be met. So, renewing a grant, that's being observed. So, as far as that goes, it's nice that there are some metrics that are met there, but there are a lot of soft goals, a lot of soft goals that I had to really think about this with the question, and I was thinking, how do we track all these soft goals, and I even looked on our website, I went everywhere, do we have them anywhere in one place, like the goals section of the website? So it was a good question. I'm thinking if someone asks me that again, it'd be nice to be able to answer that quickly, where are we with a lot of these goals? So that was a really great question. And if you think about it, where we're going to be after a strategic plan that is implemented, that is sort of driven and contributed to by everybody, when it comes to discussing a teacher's contract the next time around, I'm just thinking there'd be more partnership in the community. We may not be where we are now the next time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Flanders, candidate in Ward 4. Actually, Central is in the gym, being up here on stage is a bit different. I was up on stage a lot. Now I see the first time it's a lot. But I'd first of all like to thank you guys for having us here. Can you guys hear me now better? Let's start out with the teacher's contract. Absolutely, we should have a contract. I agree with you. Let's hope we get there with the children and get these guys a contract they deserve. In terms of goals and how we're reaching our goals and all the nuances that go with that, I'm going to take a simple approach. The Manchester school system is a great school system. Could it be better? Yeah. Do we want it to be better? Of course we do. And to me, what I think is a school system is the foundation of the community. People want to stay here, they want to come here, they want to live here, they want the youth to stay here. And if you've got a good school system, they are. And to me, it's all about perception. And maybe the perception is wrong about the Manchester school system. I think it is. again, having children come out of Central, this is the best school in the city. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that, because people there from Memorial or whatever, but this is a wonderful school. This is a wonderful school system. The diversity you have, the teachers you have in the school system, wonderful. Can we get better from that? Absolutely. How do we get better from that? And how do we make sure our processes are followed through and goes in that? The obvious answer is money. And how do you get the money? Where do you get the money? You don't get it all from property taxes. You need business, nonprofits, and these other entities that have the money to step up and give us some money to fund all these things, to make this a first-class, world-class school system, which it can be. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Porter. I'm a candidate for school board in Ward 1. And we've all heard a lot of great answers here today. I would like to start with the board and the goals. After my daughter was born, she's a third grader at Smith Road now. I had the honor to serve on the board at our local YMCA. And they had a really interesting board there. It was very diverse, different political backgrounds and ideologies. But the one thing they did that was really great was that they all agreed of the core principles of the Y and how they were going to make sure that the people that walked into those buildings every day, the employees and the members, felt supported by that board. And that their goals were basically that it's our job to make their lives awesome and to make their lives better so they can achieve what they want to. I've been watching school board meetings for 8 months, and as Dan kind of brought up, it's a little foggy as to what are the goals, and I've looked on the website. And the basic idea of, yes, we want our students to achieve at a high level, and yes, they come from a very diverse background from all over the world with all these new challenges that we're facing. But that doesn't mean that as a board we can't come together and say it's our job to support these people. And we need to make sure that we do everything we can so that their lives are good and that they can achieve. As for the contract, it's been going on for almost 18 months now. And as Jim pointed out, they've had 3 or 4 years without a contract in the last 8, and that's caused a lot of teachers to leave. It's been widely reported that 130 have left since the last contract. We had 40 retire and 90 go to other districts. And our district can't afford that. We just can't. We can't afford to be losing people that are dedicating their lives to helping educate and raise our children. So a contract is paramount in my idea to make sure that not only the teachers, but the administration and our paraprofessionals that are helping everything work in those schools make sure that they have what they need to do it. Chris brought up a great point too about being in the schools. I had a meeting at Smith with the teachers there and just asked them, like, hey, what do you guys need? How has it changed in the last 10 years? And I got a really, really long list, and it was a great discussion, and I thought to myself, wow, if I get elected, I got a lot to do. But afterwards, a teacher pulled me aside and said, in 18 years, we've had people visit, we've had people sit in the classroom, but we've never had someone come in and say, tell us about your experience, tell us how we can be better, and just listen. And I think that's something as a board we need to do. We need to be there to serve the people going inside that building every day. Thank you.
Yeah, we would just like to give Sean Parr an opportunity to address the question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Parr. I'm running for school board in Ward 2. Thank you very much for including all of us in this important discussion. My children go to Smith Road School. I've been volunteering there over the last year, getting to know the teachers and the students and what a wonderful place it is there, but I'm in it because of the contract issue. That was the first thing that I discovered, and I think that it's a really pressing issue. I think that it's more than just a contract issue, like some of my colleagues have talked about there. It also has to do with pay, and I think whether it's your opinion or not, the market shows that the teachers are underpaid, that the staff are underpaid, the paraprofessionals are underpaid, and that's why teachers and paraprofessionals are not staying in Manchester. And I think that the board needs to work really hard to improve that situation and think much more long-term beyond just a one-year contract. In terms of my background, I'm a college professor. I'm super invested in education. Like Porter, I'm also very interested in listening to the teachers, listening to the principals, listening to the parents. I've visited Smith, I've talked to the principals there, I've talked to the principal at Weston and Central, and trying to do tours, and I think that kind of a commitment is something I'm prepared to do once I'm in office too. I would continue that conversation. And that's one of the primary ways to assess whether the goals that we're attempting are going to fruition. And I think the other step to that is to think about some measurable data also. I have experience with assessment of educational programs, and I think that there are ways of doing that that's not overly burdensome on the teachers and principals, but still will give important information to the citizens and the students and the parents. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean Parr. So for this next question, unfortunately, we are on a time schedule. So the next question will be, with one word, describe your vision for the Manchester School District. We'll start with James Porter.
One word for my vision of the Manchester School District.
For the Manchester School District.
Improvement.
Tough question. One word. First class. I
Community. It's in mission or vision statement, so community makes sense.
Citizenship.
Supportive. Collaboration.
Restored, resourced.
I would go forward with collaboration.
Inclusive.
Mine's technically 2 words, but it's hyphenated, high functioning.
Collaboration.
How about a round of applause for the candidates running for We will now welcome the candidates running for Board of Aldermen. We will now welcome the candidates running for Board of Aldermen. From Ward 2, Alderman candidate Will Stewart. From Ward 3, Alderman candidate Pat Long, as well as Jerry Gibson. From Ward 6, Alderman candidates Jerry Gibson was from Ward 6, my apologies. From Ward 7, Alderman candidates Brenda Norswell. From Ward 7, Alderman candidates Ross Terrio. From Ward 9, Alderman candidate Dan Leclerc. Our first question for the alderman candidates is, over the course of the last decade, we've seen new hospitals, new parks, and new improvements to the roads and bridges. Why do you think we have yet to implement a rail system to Boston?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can't see me. My name is Dan Leclerc. I'm running for Alderman Ward 9. Okay, sorry about that. So, infrastructure basically is what you're talking about. Infrastructure starts from the teachers and goes right on up. I mean, that's roads, the highways, the schools, they all need work. Unfortunately, the schools are one of our biggest costs in this city. I went to an economic meeting the other night and they talked about how streets are some of the biggest wastes of the city, that if we got rid of some of them and built houses or anything on the streets, it might cause a little bit more traffic, but it would save so much money. But yeah, definitely infrastructure is huge. Our airport's is doing great. There's a lot of business in the city. But yes, the schools, starting from the teachers again, and going right on up. We need help with our infrastructure here. And again, schools and teachers are the best place, in my opinion, to start.
Ross Terrio, candidate for Alderman Ward 7. And I apologize, most of what you said, I didn't get the last sentence. Can you repeat that?
Allow me to reiterate the question. Over the course of the last decade, we've seen new hospitals, new parks, and improvements to the roads and bridges. Why do you think we have yet to implement a rail system to Boston?
So, you want a rail system to Boston, basically, or is the gist of the question?
Correct.
All right. I don't support a rail system to Boston as currently configured, and here's why. There's several reasons. I used to live in Boston. I love public transportation. It's a great idea in a severely congested corridor of travel. I don't oppose the bringing up to computer rail. The question comes down to how we're going to pay for it. I don't think that currently we could afford it at this point. The other thing that I'm concerned about with public commuter rail to Boston is right now Manchester has about a 1% vacancy rate. We have a lot of homelessness, and I personally believe that if we had a commuter rail system to Boston, we would have gentrification. We would then be competing with people from Boston who move up to New Hampshire, which is not a bad thing, but that 1% vacancy rate would evaporate. We'd have a 0% vacancy rate. So I think that with the commuter rail system that is currently proposed, we would have homelessness would be worse, and gentrification would drive a lot of long-term Manchester residents out of the housing, and apartments would be hard to find. Thank you.
So my name is Brendan Wesser, and I am also in Ward 7, so you get the benefit of hearing kind of from both of us, any Ward 7 people out there this evening. I think part of the problem, and one of the reasons we don't have it besides money, because everyone always wants to know how we fund these things, is I think that people still think of Manchester as a town. Manchester is a city. We are the largest city in the state, and we need to start planning and visioning for what we want in the city. If we want bigger companies to come to the city, if we want to retain our young people, if we want to retain people from cities like Boston and attract them here when they are ready to buy homes and want to have a little more land, then we need to incorporate that into how we plan for the future, and I do think that's part of rail. And I think part of what we've been missing are leaders who understand that long-term vision, that long-term planning. Who do we want to be, not just now, and to solve the problems that and challenges that we have now as a city, but where do we want to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now? When some of you in this room retire, do you want to be able to sell your homes? You know, for the young people in this room, do you want to be able to kind of go off and travel and try your place in other cities and then come back to New Hampshire and raise a family? So that, I think, has been one of the challenges, is we lack a true vision that people can get behind as to where we want to be, and that's why I think rail has been lacking.
Thank you. My name is Joey Gibson, Ward 6. Next day. This is an interesting question about infrastructure. I haven't heard a huge groundswell of cry for rail. However, I think that it would be a fantastic idea. And the fact is that if there was a giant groundswell, then we as leaders on the Aldermanic Board should be responsive to that and say, yeah, absolutely. If we will be proactive and lead into things like this, then we should be able to do So I think that if that's something that we decide we need to go forward with, we can absolutely do it. There's always going to be the complaints about how we're going to pay for these things, right? But if we prioritize things and we say this is something that we want to do, we can find a way to get us. And that's all people here in finding a way to get us if it makes sense for the people of Manchester. Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Pat Long, candidate Ward 3 for Alderman. A couple of basic, first of all, the Governor and Council voted for the $4 million to, not to study, but to implement what it is that we need to get this rail here. Second of all, I'm pro-rail. How do we pay for it? How are we paying for our highways? We're close to $1 billion in this Highway 93 expansion. My understanding is that if we get a train, that cost will come down because the roads won't be used as much. So there's some of the money that can be used there. As far as economic development with this, I firmly believe that economic development will boom having rail here. Not only for people going to Boston, but for those in Boston that want to come and work in our area and would rather live in the Boston area. As far as the rail goes, I'm pro-rail. I think it's Manchester's next economic boom, and I'll do everything I can to bring that forward. Thank you.
Hi, Will Stewart, candidate for Alderman in Ward 2, and I think the question was, why don't we have rail? I would say historically, and no offense to my colleague up in Concord, it's historically been a lack of political will at the state level is the reason we don't have it, short and simple. I was glad to hear the legislature did vote for $4 million to complete the analysis of rail and to see what that entails us. I would say too that in addition to rail, we shouldn't forget about buses. Public transit is very important, and we need to both invest in, I believe, rail for economic development purposes, for transit-oriented development purposes, but also buses to get us around not just Manchester, but between cities. So it's not in either wards and all of the above.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. For our next question, the question is, if you received a $1 million grant to use for the city in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Thanks. If I could go back to that last question really quick, just because I didn't hear it properly, but I agree with Alderman Long. We do need this rail system. And Manchester is not only the biggest city in New Hampshire, it's the biggest city north of Boston. So anything we can do to get folks down there and to get folks up here is part of the economic development, which is also part of the Manchester 10-year plan, something that we'd like to implement too. So it would be huge for the city. So if I had $1 million, I'd be rich, as the song goes, but throwing money at stuff doesn't always fix it either. Obviously we have issues in the city, and $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't. Between the homelessness, the opioid crisis, the mental health issues, transitional housing, we need job training, not necessarily career training, because the schools are developing that, and so are like the community college and stuff. But job training, just people that don't know that maybe haven't been in the workforce very long, or having difficulties getting into the workforce, understanding how jobs work. Just working with people to make sure that they are a part of the society, a part of wanting to be working, and just hireable. Some people just don't understand that, and that's where we need to help. That's where we need to make them positive people in our community, not a detriment or feel like a detriment. Make them feel good. If you make people feel good, they're going to feel good. They're going to be a positive part of the city. And, I believe if that's where we're going to spend money, we spend them on the people that really need it.
If I had $1 million, I would put it into the school system, and here's why. Our schools are chronically underfunded. The Manchester budget's about $320 million, about $150 million of that goes to the city side, about $170 million of that goes to the school system. Now, a lot of people think that's too much money, but it's a lot of money. And if you go go to the New Hampshire Department of Revenue's website, what you'll find is our tax rates are out of whack for the city of Manchester. If you compare Manchester to the rest of the state of New Hampshire, what you're going to find is we pay more than the state average for city services. This has been going on for years, but we pay less than the state average for our school system. So our tax system is our not how much we pay for taxes, but what is allocated for. So because our school system is chronically underfunded, I would like to see $1 million go to things like technology, building infrastructure, and things like that we desperately need, because we've been shortchanging our school system for years and years and years.
So what would I do if I had an unrestricted $1 million grant to use in Manchester? I think it's really interesting because it goes back to, it ties into a lot of what we talk about with tax cap and the tax cap debate of using one-time funds for things that need to be properly funded on a regular basis. So I thought about this, and this is going to sound a little wacky, but I think it helps on a lot of levels. I am a big proponent of Manchester. I think there's a ton of potential in the city. I think there are numerous groups like you and other community organizers out here who are doing great things. I would use a $1 million grant to set up a mini community grant fund. Any type of organization that was looking to do something great in the city, we have a group of volunteers right now at Valley Street Cemetery who are going in and cleaning trash and clearing brush. If you were a neighborhood watch group and wanted money to clean up a neighborhood, you could apply for a mini grant program. It not only would boost positivity in our city, it would encourage more people to get involved, and as more people got involved, I believe something like that would be a self-sustaining program. More companies, more independent citizens would want to continue a fund of that nature to see more good being done in our city. So much good is being done here right now that doesn't get talked about, it doesn't get posted about in the paper or the Union Leader or anywhere else, but it is happening here, and that's what I would do, is try to use that money and create more good in the city.
What to do though? One-time $1 million windfall. Again, a lot of great answers, a lot of good choices. Ultimately, I think one of the things that we have to look at is, I was thinking back in my time, I'm retired military, so I spent a lot of time all over the country, and at one point I lived in Utah. Is anybody up there familiar with what happened in Salt Lake City? They had a big homelessness problem, and about 5-6 years ago, Salt Lake City just said, why don't we just build houses? Why don't we just build housing for the homeless? It was widely hailed as a breakthrough at the time. You know, it seemed like a really simplistic idea. Just build houses for the homeless and just give it to them and watch them grow from there. Is it a panacea? No. I mean, it's not the only answer. But if $1 million showed up on our doorstep tomorrow, that's probably the direction I would get going with it. I know Manchester has some homelessness and has some issues with vagrancy. So let's give them a place to go. And if we want to be really crazy, not to get too convoluted, but we can start a program where we actually put some people to work recycling. Have you heard of eco-bricks? Where people literally take used soda bottles and stuff them full of plastic that doesn't break down. And they pack them tightly, and they use them for building materials. You know, maybe we could make that $1 million stretch go a long ways. Maybe not the total answer, but I think that's where I would start. Thanks a lot.
Now, did you say 100 million?
1 million.
Oh, 1 million. Okay, there's 100 things I can think of using 1 million. What I would do immediately is address the elders. In this city, our apartments are just booming so well. The market rates are so high that people are buying these apartment buildings and they're evicting people that have lived there for 20, 25 years, 70 and older. They don't have the opportunity to go out and get a job and save their money and put it down deposit. And I'm finding a lot of them are struggling just to move their stuff into storage until they find an apartment, which they can't find an apartment. So this $1 million would absolutely go towards the elders. getting them a manageable place to live. At these ages, they should be comfortable. They should not be working about it. They worked hard all their life with the expectation that the money they got from Social Security or what have you, or that little pension that they do have, would carry them through. The market has gone up too high, and they're not able to sustain themselves. And I think that initiative would be a priority for me with this $1 million.
I'll agree with the first speaker that $1 million doesn't go very far these days if we see both the city and the school budgets. So it definitely, unfortunately wouldn't make a dent in the homelessness issue and the opioid or other drug issues that we face. So, my thought on this, I might like to see, I've read about what's called participatory budgeting. And I might like to do a little pilot project and have $1 million distributed, evenly across the city, across the 12 wards, and let the residents in the neighborhoods, kind of decide what they'd like to do. Maybe some would like to spruce up the parks in the neighborhoods. Others might like to, help out the PTO for the local schools. But really, let the residents decide what they might like to do with it. It might be a neat experiment.
Our next question for the candidates running for the Aldermanic Board is, if someone came to you with a proposal to build a new piece of public infrastructure, road, bridge, hospital, etc., how would you evaluate whether that project is worth improvement in?
Yeah, I kind of answered this one the first time because that's what I thought the question was. So again, infrastructure, like you're talking about, definitely starts with the schools. If we have great teachers, if we have great schools, that's going to bring people into the city. It's going to bring businesses into the city. And it's going to want to make them want to stay. And if we want the people to stay and keep living here, we have to start there. It was talked about with all our school board candidates. And I believe it to be true too. Police, fire, teachers. If all three of those different departments are strong, knowing that their kids are going to get a great education, be safe in their neighborhoods, be safe in their school, people are going to come here and they're going to stay here. I hope, I have two sons that went right through Manchester, so did I. One of them is a teacher out in Colorado, and I thought, hey, I would love for him to stay here and be a teacher here. My other son is still local, and I hope he stays local. But if he moves on, I understand it. But in order to get businesses to come here, our basic infrastructure, teacher, police, and fire, that all has to be really, really strong.
I'll be honest with you, I can't think of anything offhand as far as infrastructure. There's wants and there are needs. I guess we have to use a data-driven type of analysis to see what we need and what we can afford. But one of the great things, I'm originally from Massachusetts, from the suburbs of Massachusetts. I came out here for a job, didn't think I was going to stay long. One of the things that I love about Manchester is it really has everything. This is why I'm a little bit stumped by this question. We have two great hospitals. We're centrally located. If we want to go, to the lakes, skiing, to the seashore, to Boston, we're all in the middle of everything. We have highways to bring us in, we have buses, we have an airport. We have an unbelievably diverse city, and it's just a great quality of life. Again, we do have some challenges of homelessness and heroin addiction. But I've come to really enjoy living in Manchester. I really can't think of offhand any infrastructure that we're lacking besides trains, which we've already discussed. And so this would have to take a lot of thought, I think, not only on my part, but on the city of Manchester's thought on what we're lacking.
So a little bit about my business background. I own my own company now. Before that, I worked in technology for a decade, and I managed a product that was a multi-million-dollar product. And as a product manager, I would be in meetings, I would give keynote presentations, I would do all kinds of things, but I always had an open door policy. Anyone, whether you be a customer service person, a trainer, anyone could ask me questions or bring up ideas. And I feel like that's what this somebody has an idea in this community, I want them to know that they can come to me, and I will do my best to help put it into a way that other people can understand. Why do we need it? What is the intent? Do you need to have statistics and data to come with it? Does it need a proposal? Do we need to bring in some other experts? Are you an expert? And I think that that's what I would really bring to something like this, is the ability to say, hey, I may not have all the answers for you, but I'm willing to listen and point you in the right direction and pull in the experts that we need to see if this is something that would benefit our city.
Just to be clear, can I have you read the question again? So I'm sure I'm answering the right question.
If someone came to you with a proposal to build a new piece of public infrastructure, road, bridges, hospitals, etc., how would you evaluate whether that project is worth improvement in?
How to evaluate whether or not that is a worthwhile project, right? Ultimately, the test is it in the public good? Does it serve the public good? That's ultimately what we're here to do. And I'm not a fan of saying, well, it costs too much money or it's too hard. We need to, like I said, find a way to guess if it makes sense. And again, that's why we are asked to make these decisions, right? Put on the board to debate and discuss and come to a consensus based on what's best for our constituents. So, a new bridge or bridge improvement, or I mean, again, we can get people from the business background say, hey, I need to get across the river to do business. So that's a need that's being identified. So it's ultimately what we can put our heads together and say, what's in the public good? And that's what we're here to decide. Thanks.
So as far as infrastructure goes, I sit on the planning board as Mr. McClare also. And I think you have to measure its sustainability. For example, new roads. Now we know every 25, 30 years we have to redo a road. That's the public, that's at the taxpayer dollars. So we have to make sure that this road is being used, and 25 years from now, we're still going to be needing it and not having to put reconstruction into it. So with respect to buildings, I mean, we heard at that forum that we went to that Walmart, that's 15 years, their buildings. They're inexpensive buildings. Every 15 years, they move to another one, build another 15-year Walmart. So, you know, and that doesn't benefit the city because the tax value isn't as high. So with the infrastructure, roads and bridges, we have to make sure that they're sustainable, that looking forward 25, 30 years from now, they're still going to be needed. And they'll, so that when we invest in it, we're not investing in something that decreases. So we put in the new road because there's a market for it today. 10 years from now, it's half. 20 years from now, we're reconstructing the road at the top price, and we don't need it as much as we do. There are ways to look at infrastructure to make sure it's sustainable and to make sure it's in the best interest of the community.
Yeah, so I'd say, you know, if you're evaluating an infrastructure project or really anything on which to spend the public's money, you have to ask a number of questions. One, you know, what is the benefit to the public? What are the benefits to the people who live here? You know, what does it cost? Where is the funding going to come from? You know, what's the cost of not doing this project? You know, what other things could we be spending our money on? And then evaluate, you know, that against all of the other needs that the city faces. And then, you know, do a cost-benefit analysis, and if it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't, no.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for our all-women candidates? Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. Thank you very much to all of the candidates tonight for addressing the concerns of our community. On behalf of Young Organizers United, on behalf of Young Organizers United, the students of Manchester Central, West, Memorial, and MSD, as well as the Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.